Hey everybody, Cheryl here. Today I'm going to show you how to make a unique wreath hanger. I don't think you'll see many like them around. I got this idea from Lynn at J Woods. Thanks, Lynn. The first thing I did is I went and got me a piece of wood from my husband's stash of wood in the garage, and I cut it down to like a 10.5 by 8, more or less, size, to fit the paper that I'm going to be using. It's an A4 rice paper, which means it's about, oh, let's see, 11.75 by 8.27, more or less. Next, put your hanger on the back before you start your work. It's a lot easier to do it now than later. Then pick out your picture. Aren't these cardinals pretty? They're from Reba Rose Creations. She has an Etsy shop. They're so pretty. I've decided to go with this one. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is put down our decoupage medium, our bottom coat. And you can buy Pen Arts decoupage varnishing glue, but I had this that I needed to use up, so I'm going to use this for my bottom coat. I just mix it with a little bit of water to thin it out because it is really thick and it'll go on much easier when it's a little thinner. We're going to work in sections because it's easier as you're lining your paper up on your wood to do it in small sections so you're not dealing with a whole board of wet glue. So we're going to start our first section here, and this is the one we're going to take our most time on because this is where we get our image lined up and straight on the board. So we're going to take our image and put it on there just where we want it and then raise it up to the glue. And of course, I'll think it's crooked and readjust it several times between now and the time it's finished. But you do have a little time before that glue dries that you can lift and reposition your paper. You don't have forever, but you do have a little time. Now, it's easier to do with rice paper than it would be for a one-ply napkin. They are very, very fragile and they would tear easier. But these rice papers are a little sturdier. You see how it just lifts off and I can reposition it onto the glue? I still don't have it right, so I'll have to do it again. And then once you think you have the top lined up, check your bottom because sometimes when you think it's lined up straight at the top, it's crooked at the bottom, so you will need to do some adjustments there. This little tool is like a putty knife. It's a plastic one, so it's not going to tear my paper. I'm still being gentle with it. I'm not aggressively rubbing my paper with it, but I am using it to, like a squeegee, to move the glue up underneath the paper and make sure there's no bubbles or creases. You'll have less creases and wrinkles with rice paper than you will a napkin, a tissue. You see, I'm really picky about making sure it's straight. And maybe you guys, maybe you guys can get it on the first go. I just can't. I end up having to play with it a lot. And during all that time of lifting, I've kind of removed some of the glue, so I'm just adding a little bit more to make sure that it'll stay down on those edges. This little squeegee thing really makes your work go down flat. Now that I've finally got it straight on the board, I'm going to roll that paper up to where there's just a little bit of glue showing from my first section. That way, we're not going to have any dry lines going across the board where there isn't any glue. That the entire board will be cohesive in the amount of glue you have on the board. So there's going to be no places where it's not sticking. And I'm going to go right up underneath that paper, add some glue, and then spread it out evenly. You want enough again to make sure that your paintbrush is gliding across the board easily and you don't feel it pulling or getting stuck, but you don't want so much that it's dripping off the board either. They do have rollers that you can use for decoupage. I've seen them at Walmart and Hobby Lobby, but this works really good. And I just got a new one after I did this video from Decoupage Queen. It's a little squeegee, but it's got foam on one side and kind of a plastic on the other, and it works nice as well. Use what you have though. I am just trying to learn new techniques and styles, so I'm trying out new tools, which is fun. You can make those sections a little bigger as you're going down. You're not having to worry so much about having to pick the paper up and making it straight again. You can go a little bit faster. But take your time on that first part because once it's dry, it's not going anywhere. You can feel on these papers how smooth they go down. And the medium that you're using, like I'm using Mod Podge here for my first initial glue, and it's working fine. I've watered it down, but the pen art decoupage varnishing glue really does make a difference in the way your paper lays on your wood or whatever you're decoupaging. It does really lay pretty and nice. And if you're creating things to sell, use the good products. I mean, charge accordingly for your finished product, but it does make a difference. The reason I'm using that Mod Podge is because I bought the giant bottle of it. But on my second top coat, I will be using Pen Art products. Now we're drying that bottom coat. And you notice that I tested it on my hand, which I don't know how smart that is. I mean, I could have burnt myself, but you don't want it so hot that it's burning your paper or making your glue bubble, but you want it warm enough that it is drying. Just keep that heat gun moving. I have, scorched papers before, bubbled up paint because my heat gun was too hot. Check your corners. You may have to put a little bit more glue on those corners because, especially that top part, because, I picked it up so many times. You just add your glue and push it back down. If you've never used a rice paper in your decoupage, you should try it at least once. And it is different. I'm not saying I don't like using napkins. I've used napkins a lot and I've made some really pretty things with them. But you can tell a difference when you're actually doing the application, how much simpler it is and flatter and less wrinkled it is when you're using a rice paper. And they come in all different prices. I've bought some for under $1 on sale and some like this one I think was $6. She is from Reba Rose Creations on Etsy and she's so pretty. After that initial uh, application of glue and my rice paper, I'm going to now take those edges off. And this is just a little mini sander or micro sander. You can get them at Walmart, Hobby Lobby. I don't know if Hobby Lobby, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, they have them. And they're nice. You just have little strips of sanding paper that you can replace once your paper gets too used. It looks like this one needs to be replaced. Although rice paper is sturdier, so it will take a little bit more effort to get those edges off than it would if it was a napkin. And as you're sanding, make sure you're going sanding in a downward motion. If you do have to go sideways like this, make sure you're on the side of the board, not the top where you're messing up your picture at the top, your image at the top. You don't want to be sanding off your decoupage that you just worked so hard to get straight. And I'm doing this before I put on my top coat. That's a personal preference. Some people wait until after they put on their top coat to do this. I like to do this first. Simply because, you may have some frayed edges or fibers or whatever. And if I wait and do my top coat after I've done this, then I'm making sure all those little frays and fibers are being glued down as well. I'm probably gonna jump ahead here a little bit so that you'll have to watch me take the whole picture sides off. Oh, there we go. Now we're at the end. Almost have that excess trimmed off the board there. So we're just left with a beautiful picture on a painted board. And there we go. Isn't she pretty? And you can see how perfectly those edges came off of there. But now we're going to make sure they stay down by putting our top coat on. And I will be using the Pent Art varnish and glue with glitter. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're going to say glitter, it's going to be all over my house. But this glitter is so soft, it's almost like a frosted look. It's not a glitter slap you in the face look. It's very, it's just very pretty and frosty looking. I love it, especially on things for Christmas or anything you want sparkly, for Valentine's Day, even Halloween. I'm using the same brush I used on with my Mod Podge because it's glue. Now you're gonna want to put a nice coat on here, thick enough for good coverage and thick enough that your brush is gliding easily over the board. You can feel it when you've got not enough product on your brush because you can feel it sticking or pulling against your rice paper. You don't want it to do that. You want it thick enough that it glides very smoothly over that picture. But again, don't put so much on that it's dripping off the edges. Now we're going to dry that top coat. It really doesn't take long. You don't have to use a heat gun to dry your top coat. You can walk away for an hour or so and let it dry by itself. I don't ever have the patience to do that. You see how that's just a frosty, sparkly look? It's not like big pieces of glitter. It's a very nice effect. Now I'm trying to decide if I want to do any painting, and of course I do. I'm using this metal pigment from Art. It's like a mica powder. Matter of fact, you could use mica powder if you don't have it, but this is such a pretty color. It's the antique gold, and it's the prettiest gold metal metallic color I've ever seen. And to turn this pigment into paint, you use a pigment fix from Art, and you don't need a whole lot. It only takes a little. A little goes a long way. I'm probably mixing more than I need for the little painting I'll be doing on this project. You're just going to add the pigment mix to the powder and stir. Look how gloriously beautiful that is. That's so pretty. And it goes on nice. It's, with some metallics, they go on and you have to do 3 or 4 coats to make it not see-through. This goes on in just one coat for what I'm doing. Now, if I had to paint a big project, I don't know. And what I like to do is I take and I start highlighting things like these little berries have little white dots at the top or on the berry somewhere. I'm putting those gold drops on those spots so that it will highlight those. I'm trying to show you. I don't think you can see right away. You can see it a little, but they're so pretty. And I'm just highlighting those little berries to make them pop. You don't have to do this. You can stop where it is and put a hanger on it or let it sit on a shelf or hang on a wall, and it's just as pretty. But I like to add a little bit more and make it more dimensional. There's little, you know how sometimes you have the little yellow things and stamens or whatever you call them inside the flower. I'm highlighting those with the gold. If I see any swirls, I'm kind of swirling those around with the gold. You can highlight the branches. Oh yeah, you can see the gold dots now. They're so pretty. You can highlight those branches with a little streak of gold on them. They would also be pretty if you took some type of snow pen and put snow on the branches, a little bit more snow. Put a little bit more snow on those evergreen boughs down there. It makes it more three-dimensional and not as flat. It gives the picture life or movement, I should say. The problem I have when I'm doing things like this is when do I stop? Because I can look at it and see, oh, I could do that too, or oh, I could do that. But make it your own. Do as little or as much as you want. We're just going to sit a minute and watch me paint. Sometimes when I'm trying to merge for instance, like my image, my rice paper was smaller than the actual thing that I'm putting it on. Like for instance, I do a lot of silver trays or plates. So I will paint around the image and onto the image to try to merge them to where you can't see where one ends and the other begins. So you can do the same thing with this too. You can paint over the bird and different, you can put a little extra red on the bird. You could put a little more green on the evergreen, a little more brown on the branches. Sorry, I've got horrible allergies, guys, and my throat's kind of going crazy. I wanted to highlight her little feathers around her face. I'm calling her because she's not all red, so I'm just assuming she's a girl. So she's getting decorated like a girl. In the background, I have my Christmas videos and music playing to inspire me. If you're wondering why the TV is so big, it's because my husband bought it. But as I get older, I appreciate larger screens a lot more than I used to. I'll sit and watch Kat create a wreath there and I'll create one with her. So it's like she's in the room with me. Sometimes it's okay when you're creating something like this and you don't know when to stop painting, or just remember you can always add, but you can't take it away. Once it's on there, it's on there. So if you need to, step away from it for a while, even overnight, and then look at it. Look at it in another light, look at it in another room, and say, does it need anything else, or do I need to stop here? Give yourself the time to add or subtract, or you can't really subtract, but add what you want when you want it. And don't be afraid to try something new. I mean, I've had lots of fails, but I've learned from every one of them. Sometimes it's better when you're learning a new thing to start small. Start on something that doesn't cost a lot. Like this piece of wood didn't cost me a thing. My husband's a home builder and they have scraps of wood laying all over the job site so I can get wood anytime I want. But start small and go up from there. Never be afraid of the failures, or don't be afraid to try something new. Look at me. I'm making a video. I never thought I would. Cat's helping me grow, pushing me out of my comfort zone. I'm studying it to see if I want to add any more paint. Gosh, I think I'm done with the paint part anyway. You see how that gold stands out now? Pretty bird. Okay, I'm finally finished with the painting. Now I've added some snowflakes. I'm using this Pentart snow crystal paste. You can get it just plain, and it would be just a white snowflake, but I wanted a little bit of sparkle. And I'm using a Tim Holtz stencil, snowflake stencil. And I just wanted to show you that it's really not as hard as it looks. I was scared to death the first time I tried it, but especially since I tried it on a, something that I was actually working on. But all you do is hold it down, kind of push that paste in without that template moving, and it'll make a pretty snowflake. It's not as hard as you think. There she is. And it's just another way to add dimension to your work. You're adding movement and it didn't look so flat. So I think I need to add one more because why not? And I like to, like with this snowflake, I'm putting part of it over the bird's tail because it looks like it's in front of the bird that way because it is higher off the board than the actual bird itself. So it looks like the snowflakes in front of the bird and not laying on the bird. But it's a layered look when you can put something over another thing. It becomes a layered look. You can, if you're afraid that the stencil will move, you can get an adhesive spray to spray on the back of that and lay it on your work. And it'll hold on there still while you're putting the paste on, and then it'll just come right off, peel right off. But I had wet snowflakes. I didn't want them all in one spot. I wanted them kind of all around the picture. And if I had waited until the other snowflakes dried, I could have sprayed that adhesive on there. But of course, I didn't want to wait. I wanted to put them all there at one time. And now I thought about giving her a crown. I've seen a lot of crown birds lately, especially winter birds. I guess it's a thing. I think it's cute, so I went with it. I ordered these little crowns from Amazon. You can get them in different sizes. You can get them smaller than this to go on little bitty small birds, or you can get them bigger. But I took the crowns, they came in gold and silver, and I took them and I cut them in half and got rid of whatever that whole thing was in the middle. And now I'm going to glue it on. Now you can use different things to glue. Right now, because it's what I had, I'm using super glue and hot glue. But you could use E6000 and hot glue. You could use what Pentart calls heavy body gel and hot glue. I didn't have any heavy body gel, so I'm using what I have, which is the super glue and the hot glue. Um, the super glue will, when it hardens, will make it stay on there forever unless you just physically knock it off. And the hot glue will keep it in place while that super glue is hardening. Uh, I would give it at least a couple of hours to really dry, but I was in the middle of making this video, so I put it on and kept working. And you'll see me have to re-glue it a couple of times, but once I let it sit overnight, it was on there really good. I would have to physically knock it off to get it off. A smaller glue gun might have helped too because I'm trying to squeeze just enough to get on that thin little piece of metal without squeezing a whole bunch onto my fingers, which I have done many times. There we go. Now, like I said, you should really let this dry before you start messing with it, but I didn't, so I'll have to glue it again later. But I want to take some of that shine off that crown. It's beautiful crown. It's nice and shiny, and on another picture it might work without any antiquing, but it was not going with the antique look of the picture that I have going here. So I took a little silver gunmetal color and I'm trying that on it. Didn't work, so I'll end up using something else. But before I got there, I decided she needed some more highlights. It's kind of a gunmetal silver color right around her face. Like I said, I don't ever know when to stop. Pick your work up and look at it under different lights, from different sides, from different views. See what everything's doing there. And here I'm trying that on the crown itself, but it it wasn't doing really anything. So I'm gonna go to my good old friend Rub and Buff in the antique gold. This stuff is wonderful. You can take and highlight raised pieces on a picture frame with it. It's kind of the opposite of antiquing because the antiquing patients, y'all go down into the crevices and cracks of something. This kind of lays on the top and it's more like a highlight, but it's working really good on maybe taking the shine off a little bit of this crown. It almost makes it look more vintage or like somebody's been wearing it a while. And it's Rub and Buff in the antique gold. I also take this and I go around the edges of where around the edges of the actual rice paper and the board where they meet, and I put a little bit of that around the edges. It kind of Oh, it takes the edge off the design. It makes them look like they're not so straight edged. And I also take that and use it on the sides. I just rub it with my finger to take that white paint that's around the edges of the picture or the board and make it look a little antique-y there. You'll see it later. I don't think I've show you putting that rub and buff around the edges of the picture, but I do. And you just take it with your finger and rub it along the outside of the picture, and it comes out so pretty. It adds a nice touch to your picture, as if I didn't have enough gold on there already. See, I'm going to have to glue that crown down again because I was impatient and didn't let it sit. But it will eventually stay on there. We're almost finished. I think she's beautiful, crown and all. I love the snowflakes. If you didn't want the sparkles in the snowflakes, you could just do the white paste and it would be still beautiful. Now, from this point on, you've got lots of options. You can absolutely leave it just like it is. It's gorgeous. But you can add things to it, like hooks for your wreath or one of those glass doorknob things that have the metal filigree stuff around it would be pretty just on the bottom as a decoration. These little things I think they used in scrapbooks as corners for pictures. I decided not to use those. And for some reason, I'm showing you the bird again in a different light. Oh, there's the gold around the sides, and I do have it around the edges of the picture. I don't know if you can tell. Now, what else could we do? Let's pick a hook. I love this hook. It's a cast iron hook. Looks so old world, but it was too big for that picture or that piece of wood. This one fits nicely. I got that one from Amazon. Just look up decorative hooks. Fine. This one came from Hobby Lobby. I love it too. Another Hobby Lobby. I thought that was beautiful, but I think it came up too tall on the bird, so I decided not to use that. Again, I'm playing with the little side frames. This is from a mold from IOD. I made some little leaf patterns, but I decided no on that too. You can see the little crowns there on the edges. Oh, and here's the final product, my Cardinal wreath hanger. And there it is with a wreath. A little grapevine wreath, and it has an ornament on the lower hook and the wreath hanging on the top. Here I've just got some bells and the bow, another color of an ornament. Just the bow, or you could hang a hand towel on it and hang this in your kitchen. Like I said, though, you can use it as a shelf sitter. Say that fast 3 times. You could use it just as a picture on the wall. You could use it as a wreath attachment, like a wreath sign. So many different things you could do with this. Just let your imagination go wild. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my very first video ever. Hopefully, I will get better at them. We'll see you later. God bless.